boys, let's go! Gather round the table set, maps and minis, no regret. Heroes rise and villains fall, the dice decide the fate of all. From dungeons deep to cosmic skies, at Danko calls, the flames will rise. Sharpen your swords, prepare the show. It's time to shout, we're ready to go! We're ready to go! Let the story steal the show! Ready to go! Yeah, 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 yeah! Roll for heart and rock the flow! Bards will sing and dragons know the might, the magic, the tales we throw! Ready, not go! When destiny calls and the dice hit the table, the heroes awaken and the nerds are ready. Ready to go! Leopard tails begin to grow! Ready to go! Forge your fate and steal the show! Raise your mugs, let courage flow! Ready to go!
What the hell? Welcome back to Ready Nerd Go. I feel like it's been a whole hell of a long time since we've sat down and done this. This is Graphic Policy's tabletop RPG podcast. My name's Alex. You're about to hear Anko.
Good morning, good evening, or good night. We're in out whenever you are.
I immediately got Truman Show vibes. As we said, it's been a little while since we've sat down and actually had chance to chat. And well, it's been a while since you and I have actually had a chance to chat. It's been even longer since we've actually had a chance to sit down and record anything.
Yep. I don't know how much of a gap will be between when the last episode comes out and this one comes out, but yeah, we definitely dropped the ball.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, almost 2 months. Yeah. But again, like it's been almost 2 months since they came out. I think it's been even longer since we sat down and recorded an episode.
Yep, because we burned through a lot of buffer.
Oh yeah, everything we had. So what that means is that the only notes we had for what we were going to talk about based on one of the last episode's talking points is player entitlement. Whether this episode stays on topic or spins off into something else, we're not sure. You'll probably know this based on the title. Well, no, not based on the title. Well, based on the notes if you're reading it or looking at it from the Graphic Policy website.
Yeah, it's player entitlement is a fun one because you go a few different ways in it. Like the quote unquote popular discourse over it has, kind of like everything kind of pendulumed back and forth between, all the GM should be 100% accommodating to the players at all times, or, the players should just take whatever the GM gives them, and obviously, reality is most of the time somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. So if just so we don't go into everything completely cold, um, how would you define player entitlement in a nutshell?
So for me, I would define player entitlement honestly in a similar way to how I would define GM entitlement, where it's like player entitlement, I would define as when the player is demanding something regardless of how it impacts the enjoyment of everyone else at the table.
And so conversely, you would define GM entitlement as
So conversely, very similar in the vein of, I mean, I guess the only real difference between the two is that
is that one's a player, one's a GM.
one's a player, one's a GM, and
Yeah.
there's also the bit of like, I tend to argue the GM has a bit more of a right to an entitlement just
I,
because they're the ones putting a lot more of the work in.
well, and it's funny you say GM entitlement because in some way I feel like GM entitlement's got to be a lot more specific because, like you said, the GM is, and this is as a non-GM perspective, the GM is putting in a lot more work. And so, hey, you as a GM, you have a story crafted, you're trying to go from point A to point B for valid narrative reasons. And there's a player there that's like, no, but I need this to happen. Well,
And
that's
like
not happening right
even
now. Yeah, but I don't want this to happen to my character. That's part of the game. You signed up for it.
and like even when you're looking at systems that are a lot more player driven, like the Apocalypse World series of games and like anything that spun out of those or Forged in the Dark or anything where the GM doesn't have a story made ahead of time and they're just evolving the story with whatever the players are doing, the GM is still the one trying to balance all of those plates.
Mm-hmm.
And like they even in those, especially in those types of games, I would argue they have a significantly higher cognitive load than the players do because as the player, the only thing you need to care about is your character. With the GM, they need to worry about all of the players' characters, all of the non-player characters, the world, and making sure the story stays semi-coherent the entire time. Not to mention, looking after the actual players and making sure that they're all having fun while also trying to have fun yourself, which is, I guess, the biggest difference I would argue between GM and player entitlement is, a player can be selfish and, not ruin the entire game if the GM knows what they're doing. But if the GM is being selfish, then the entire game kind of falls apart.
Which makes sense because again, like you said, the GM, it can be both a justifiable entitlement, but at the same time can easily go awry if things just don't go the way that they need to go.
Yeah, like one of the most common ones that comes up in arguments online a lot is it happens. I'm gonna say just, it happens mostly in Dungeons and Dragons. A, because they're the 900-pound gorilla in the room, but also B, because they have a very player focused culture right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, they're constantly releasing new splat books with new player options, with new ancestries, and like players pick up their books and they want to play all these fun ancestries. But I mean, from my GMing perspective, like I don't want to try to figure out how like a turtle person, a crystal person, a robot, and an ordinary elf all fit into the same world, especially if I've, made this world that doesn't have turtle people and crystal people and robot people in it.
Yep.
And
Which
like
is
there's
entirely valid.
yeah, like there's always the argument of, oh, you can just like fit them in, the players are special and all this stuff. And like honestly, I agree with those. Like, hey, if you want to work with the GM, it's like, hey, why does my robot person exist in this world? Then, okay, we can try to work with that. But it's also, I mean, bluntly, it's selfish. Because, you, especially if you want to be, the one unique snowflake of your kind, then either the GM has to pretend like it doesn't exist in world and everybody's just randomly okay with the robot person walking around, or the entire game has to bend around to this character because they're the unique special character in the world and everybody's going to notice that, because of course you're going to notice if robots don't exist in your world and there's a robot walking around.
Yeah, it's I can see it being an issue where, like you said, if the world isn't built to have robots, but you're still playing a robot because the system allows it, how do you then reconfigure the game almost on the fly
Yeah,
without having the other players feeling left out?
and I think one of the biggest examples that I've had to deal with, and even then, like my playing horror stories aren't nearly as bad as some of the stuff you read online. I mean, granted, take everything you read online with a grain of salt. But like, I think the most blatant example I've had to deal with this was, oh god, it was nearly a decade ago. I'm suddenly feeling really old. But she was a player in a game, and she had played in one campaign before with us, and we didn't have any problems. And then the next game she wanted to play in, she wanted to play like a centaur, and I was like, okay, like we can try to make this work. Like it doesn't really work very well for what we're doing, but we can try to make this work. And so we, figured out how her centaur existed, all that stuff integrated in, and then all she cared about the entire game was her special centaur person, and she didn't actually engage in the world at all beyond having that character. And like she spent most of the game like drawing art of the character and not focusing on the game. And it was just like after a while, I was like, hey, you need to stop because you're not
Either pay attention and play, or just don't.
yeah, it's like this game is not here to be, just for you. There's 5 other people at the table here.
Hmm.
You need to engage. But, for her it was she wanted to play the centaur and she wanted to have the world about her centaur, and that's all that mattered. And for me, like, that is player entitlement. It's, when what you want matters more than anybody else and you don't care what happens to get it.
I remember reading about a situation where there was a couple of players who, I don't even know what they were playing, some kind of military based game, I guess.
Mm.
And something had happened in game. One of them had tried to, one character had tried to ask another to break the rules, but had gone to the exact wrong, the direct wrong character to ask that question with, because they knew that, above table, or above the table, the player knew that this character can do what he's asking for. So
Yep.
just assumed, oh hey, I'll ask this character, he'll do it, I'll be good. But the player who he asked is like, I understand why you're asking me this, but this character is a rule follower, and wouldn't, not only would he not break the rule, he would then go on to escalate and say, hey, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And the consequences of those actions then led to what effectively remained as a court martial and complete nerfing of the other character, because they asked the wrong thing, or the wrong character the wrong question.
And like
The
that's
I was saying
that's
the bittersweet irony apparently is that there was another character in the get that group that would have done those things, and would, had they asked that person, they would then not have had to retcon almost that entire session interaction between, I think, the original ASCII and everything else. So
you know,
it,
that's an especially interesting one, just because like if that player had have actually been paying attention to anybody else at the table, there's no way they wouldn't have realized that.
mhm. Yeah, that's what
And
I,
it,
yeah,
but that's what can happen, especially when a player gets fixated on what they want to play, and like that's part of why session zero is so important. Just as like,
yeah.
hey, like, what do we want this game to be about? Like, if we want this game to be about like ne'er-do-well thieves, don't come in with your shining knight character and expect us to force to like warp the world around to justify what you want to play, because you're
We're playing thieves. Thieves are not typically the nice people.
Yeah, and like you can play like Robin Hood characters and you can play it that way, but like, you can't don't bring in like your heavy armor stompy around, you know, the law
Yep.
is always right type character, because that's just you're ignoring what the other group, what the rest of the players have agreed that they want to do to try to push your thing through.
You can if you want to play a the law is always right, except when it's wrong, heavy armor kind of guy who wants to follow the law but recognizes that he can't always do so. That can fit in with that trope. Like, hey, we're gonna go rob the rich to feed the poor. Yeah, but isn't there another way? No. Okay, I get it. Well, I'll help. This is what we're here for. Like, you can
Yeah.
still do it reluctantly. It just doesn't have to be um, as as enforced about. I'm a good guy. I can't do these. Then why the hell are you here?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, like
this is a game about thieves.
there was like
Good example of making a character that doesn't actually mesh well work. When we were playing at Hell's Rebels Pathfinder, which I think you weren't playing with, but I think you might have been around for. I can't remember.
Yeah, possibly. It also may have been one of those ones that was played in the basement. So while I was still there and would see you at the beginning, at the end, it was not one that I would actively have
Yeah,
like
but
been
yeah, so
aware
like
of, I suppose.
it's like my character in that game, which is honestly probably one of my favorite characters I'd ever played. I'm pretty sure he's come up on this podcast a couple of times already. He like he was worshiper of like the enemy religion, started the game as a lawful evil character helping a group of chaotic good rebels rebel against his own church, which in a lot of campaigns would have been okay, this character is just not at all a good fit, go back and make something else. But I worked with the GM and I worked with some of the other players to hook in reasons why he would be there and why he would be helping them. And like it wasn't one of those, oh, I'm gonna play a character that's gonna betray the party. It's no, he helped the party the entire way through because he had very justifiable to him reasons to be in there. So it's I'm not saying that you can't have a character that doesn't perfectly match whatever the brief for the campaign is, but if you're not going to put in the work to try to make your character fit what everybody else has agreed to play, then like you're being an
You
entitled
you
prick. I'm sorry.
you well, no, you are, and you're gonna have issues with that. Like not only you, but everyone, like people playing. If you want to play a centaur and people figure out how to make it work, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, why aren't you engaging? We've made this concession for you, but now you're
yeah.
less interested in that, and you're just expecting us to bend to, oh, I've done this. I don't care.
And like another great example, which still annoys me to this day, like the Centaur one is just like, yeah, sure, whatever. This one genuinely still annoys me. This was back in high school, well, shortly after high school, and we were talking about what game we wanted to play next, like actually having a proper session zero about it, and that was before like session zero was really something that had been codified. But we were talking about, it's like, hey, like, what do we want to do? And I told the groups, like, hey, I want to play, because we've been playing a lot of like, morally ambiguous, morally gray, da 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 type characters. Like, hey, I just want to play a game where we are unambiguously, good people trying to do good things for people.
Yeah.
Because like, that is, my power fantasy is actually being able to help people. It's weird.
Eh.
But like it was like, hey, I have this really fun like paladin idea I want to play where it's just it's like, oh, he's a rural country farmer who's just got anointed for this mission, and he doesn't really have that holier than thou attitude that a lot of paladins do. He's just he's a rural country bumpkin who's just bumbling through and trying to do what's best for people. Really was looking forward to that character. Had a lot of fun figuring that character out, making him match what we agreed to play. And then the other players made old gnome merchant who only cared about profits,
Mm-hmm.
and fox folk drug dealer. And the GM was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. It's like, no, it's not fine, because now I need to spend the entire game trying to justify why my character is okay being around these people,
Yep.
and B, the game is not going to be about what we agreed it was going to be about,
It's going
because
to be about something entirely different.
yeah, everybody else brought in characters that, had nothing to do with what we agreed this game was going to be about, because everybody wanted to play the special exception.
Yep.
And like, I get it, I love playing against type, but if you're going to play against type, you still need to have a justifiable reason for the character to get along with the session zero brief.
And if you're
And that
not going to, then
yeah,
there's an issue there.
yeah, and like that one especially rankled, because like after multiple sessions of me trying to figure out, the flimsiest of pretexts for why my character would, not notice the blatant drug dealing, eventually it finally hit the point where it was like, okay, like, this, we can't keep ignoring this. It has to be dealt with now, because his character is still actively going around dealing drugs.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, like, I need to address this in game. Like, this has reached a point where, PvP has to happen, because I can't, it's reached a point where I can't keep pretending it's not happening. And then
Which
the GM is just like, oh no, actually, like, what he's doing is perfectly legal in this part of the world. It's like, okay, A, that's a blatant retcon.
yeah. B, you have never once brought that up.
Yeah. And C, like, that still doesn't fix the problem.
No. Oh, it's legal in this kind of, be that as it may, it could be legal in this kind of world. It is not currently legal, or it's not something that this character is okay with, and it shouldn't have to be something the character is okay with.
Yeah, it's like we had this discussion, and like, I honestly, I do blame the GM as well, because like, she should have put her foot down and said, like, no, this character concept is not okay with the game that we've agreed to play. But she wanted to let the players do what they wanted to do, and like, that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of GMs run into that, especially when the conversation is currently on the pendulum of, the GM should always let the players do what they want to do, and they should make the world accommodate for the players. Like, I do agree with that to a point. So it's, if you come to me and you say, like, hey, I really want to play this kind of character, then it's incumbent on me to say, okay, this is the game we agreed to play. How can we make this character fit into this world? And
Yeah.
if we can't figure out a way to make it fit into this world that we've agreed to play in, I'm
Is it
sorry, come up with something else.
agreed? Like, because there's a certain thing where you just can't. If you've agreed to play a game and then all of a sudden, oh, we're all going to do it this instead. No, that's not. That's not why I'm here.
Yeah. And like, it's the joke that comes up with, like, specifically Star Wars, when people are playing a Star Wars game, and like, the GM says, like, oh, hey, I don't want to play like a Jedi game. I want to play like in the world, like, you want to do, like, the Han Solo smugglers or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a joke that, like, every player will approach the GM to the side and say, like, hey, can my character be secretly a Jedi? And then, like, or force sensitive, and then like, the entire cast and crew are secretly force sensitive Jedis, and it's just like, this is no.
This
This is
is
not the game that
this
was
is both
agreed on.
hilarious and not right.
Yeah, because, but it's like, everybody wants to play the exception, because playing the exception is fun and transgressive and cool. And trust me, I get that. I love playing characters who, like, are a twist on the concept that we've been presented with.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't have everybody be the twist, or it's no longer a twist. And if you're doing the
No.
twist, there still needs, like, in every single piece of media, there's always the brooding loner in the group, right?
Yep.
But
Always.
the brooding loner still participates, and like ultimately they're still drawn into the adventure. And it's like, we have a player in our group who really likes to play the brooding loner type. And ways back when I was playing with them before, we had a big problem of like, having to spend so much time trying to corral his character into the action, because it was like, oh, well, he's a brooding loner, like he needs to be convinced to go along, he doesn't really want to do that. It's like, okay, great, but dude, it's like, you're playing this character, and if you want to play in this session, it's your responsibility to come up with a reason why he would be joining us.
Agreed. Agreed. Like you're there to play a game, and the game is there to be played. But at the same time, like if you're not going to at least to some way to acquiesce to the nature of the game, but if you're not going to bend a little bit, say, hey, I'm a brooding loner, but you've hired me for A, B, and C. Great, that works.
Exactly. Or
Like
like, I'm a brooding loner, but I really care about this one member of the party, and I'm tolerating the rest of the group to
it,
like, make sure they're safe.
it's literally the reason why the Pathfinder game we were playing, where I was playing a goblin called Ben, there was absolutely no reason why Ben would have joined that party. Absolutely
No.
none. I'm like, well, how does Ben join? Well, he's obsessed with teeth and there's an awkward tusks. He's going to follow the awkward tusks.
Yeah. And like, it
And
doesn't need to be like an epic fleshed out reason. You just need some sort of hook, and then you can build on that.
yeah, and did we?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that went crazy places.
yeah. I was like, well, he's a goblin dentist. This, and then all of a sudden he's somehow starting encounters that probably shouldn't have been started because of the nature of the teeth.
Yeah,
So
and like
and
attaching himself to like the like most paladin like in the group entirely because of circumstances, even though like normally they would not get along in the slightest.
no. Well, I think it was entirely because I said to you, look, at some point we're going to need to control Ben's urge for teeth. Is there any way,
Yeah.
like, this is above the table, and your character, the paladin, said, made a deal with Ben. If you help us and follow my orders, I will get you a dragon tooth.
Yeah.
No idea how that's going to happen, but now all of a sudden Ben's a loyal minion and follows your
because
orders
because now Ben has
literally
a
to the
quest
T.
of his own.
Yep.
Like that,
But
but you mentioned something really important there. Like, when we were trying to figure out how to make this character mesh with the rest of the party, we stepped above the table and talked like player to player as to how we can make this work in the fiction. And that's
exactly.
something that a problem that a lot of especially newer groups have is like, oh, we need to resolve this entirely within the fiction. It's like, no, you don't.
No,
If you're if you're having a player level problem, you resolve that at the player level. You don't resolve that at the character level.
exactly, because yes, it's a problem, but maybe possibly it's something like, I mean, hey, Anko, if we keep going the way we're going, this goblin is going to cause a total party kill because he's going to see a monster that's too big. And I can see this happening with the way that we've been playing into his obsession.
Yeah.
How do we stop this? And like, well, hey, well, I'll make him a deal. Great. And then it's very much a case of the deal was made and we agreed to it, probably a bit too like conveniently if it was a movie, but we were
Hmm.
trying to not derail the story itself so much.
Yeah, and like it expanded and became its own thing and became part of the story itself, and it worked out really well.
Hmm.
Two other things I want to hit on with player entitlement that I'm thinking about now. I definitely want to hit on players using the game as therapy, because I've had that happen before, and it's
I'm
not fun when you get blindsided with it.
I I have thoughts on that, but carry on.
And the other one I want to touch on is actually, you briefly touched on it earlier, is when players refuse to let anything bad happen to their character.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
you briefly touched on that earlier with when characters get salty about, when players get salty about their character dying, but that can expand into a lot of things, especially with the example you brought up earlier of the character of one player whose character went to another one despite there being no in fiction reason for that one working, because the player really wanted something for this character regardless
of what happened.
yeah.
So to circle back or return to the as therapy, I know where you're going to say what you're going to say with this,
Mhm.
and I think that there are two different layers to that. In that, I know that one of our group has often said, oh, "I really needed this game today." Like and the therapy for them was the disconnect from reality,
Yes.
and not the I'm going to come here and I'm going to talk about all my problems. No, no, no. They went there, they disconnected, and then they left feeling better. And that is an entirely valid form of therapy via game.
Oh, 100%. I've done that multiple times. Like, hey, I just need to disconnect from reality for a little bit, enjoy a game with some friends. Perfectly
Exactly.
fine. That's, I mean, arguably the whole purpose.
That one I completely agree, and I wanted to make sure that we had that out there because I know we both agree on that.
Yes.
But sometimes, because you and I both agree on something, we don't explicitly say that. And I was concerned it would come across as you have to be in the best mental health state to come and play a game all the time. No,
Oh no,
no, no.
I am frequently not in great mental health when I'm playing, and like it's as long as I can focus on the game, disconnect is
It's good.
great. But when you bring
Exactly.
your own problems into the game, especially when the other players aren't aware, it's like
Hmm.
it's I've dealt with my own mental health issues. I have plenty of friends who have their own mental health issues in various stages and severity. And the thing that I've always said is like, it's like your mental health is a reason, but it's not an excuse.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because it's one thing to say like, hey, I lashed out. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with this. It's another thing to say, I lashed out, but that's okay because I'm dealing with this.
Exactly. Like the key difference is that this is the reason I lashed out, and I acknowledge it's not okay, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Versus I lashed out because of this. That's irrelevant to me as to why.
And like
Right.
generally what tends to happen when a player is using the game as therapy is they get very heavily invested in their character to the point where anything negative that happens to their character is treated like like a direct attack on the player. Because I've had instances where like we're playing a game and like everybody seems to be getting along fine, and combat happens, and for whatever reason, whether the character is in a bad position or whether the character has beef with the enemy or what have you, that character gets focused down and taken out. And then
It,
the player absolutely flips out and like starts yelling and shouting about, oh, how they're just targeting them and they don't like them and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, it's like we're playing a game. If you're playing a game, good things are going to
yeah,
happen and bad things are going to happen.
yeah, like your character is in a bad position, and the big bad has recognized that. Like I can, you, as the GM, you're gonna play it as realistically, quote unquote, as you can in terms of what the actual characters would be doing. They're not
Yeah,
going to, oh,
and
hey, there's this person I really don't like right in the front, but I'm going to go for this other person instead.
like a really great example, and to use myself as a negative example here. There was a time when me and my friends we decided we were going to play this like zombie apocalypse type game where the whole like concept of the game was that you created yourself in the game, and like there were some rules for like the other players like voting on traits and whatnot to balance things out. But like the concept of the game was that you were playing yourself in the
I can
world you're
I
living
can
in.
already see this not being a cool yet very dicey idea.
Yeah, and like we it was like, hey, the concept seemed great, we were all for it, and like it was just first, hey, like what if right now a zombie apocalypse happened and you and your friends had to try to survive it.
Mm.
And one of the things that I brought up with the GM right away, that it's like, hey, so like in real life, if something like this happened, the first thing I would do is go to my family because I want to make sure they're okay and they are who I would go to. I don't want to deal with that in this game. Like, we're just going to pretend that for whatever reason, our immediate families don't exist. We're just not going to acknowledge it because I don't think I can handle that in game.
Totally
And then
fair.
I was like, yeah, no problem. We're good. We'll continue. But then as the game progressed, some of the other stuff I had been dealing with and some other problems I was having in real life also started to bleed over into the game because, the game was based on real life
Hmm.
and, friends and different factors in my life that were a very large problem at the time were just included, not because the GM was like being malicious about it, but just because, like, hey, this is part of what's happening right now. We're bringing it in and we're handling it. And it wasn't like, they weren't doing it thinking, oh, Anko's, not going to have a good time with this, or Anko's going to get challenged by this. Like, they didn't even really think about it. It was just like, hey, so we're going to bring this in. And then it was like, okay, I need to step, like, and like, I actually had to get up and I had to walk away from the game. And it was, okay, guys, like, I need a moment. This is hitting me a lot harder than I thought it would. I need to step away because if I don't, like, I'm probably going to flip out at people, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
And it's like I wasn't deliberately trying to, use that game as therapy, but it hit on some emotional things that I hadn't fully processed yet, and I let it go for too long before stepping back and saying, "Hey guys, this isn't going to work for me." And we eventually hit the point where it was like, "Hey, we can't keep playing this specifically because of me. I wasn't able to keep playing in the game because the stuff that was happening in it was too close to things I was dealing with, and there was no real way to salvage it, and it
And
and it sucked."
yeah, and it's not that you're trying to you didn't go into the game expecting
No,
that. It's just one of those things that happen. You're like, fuck. Okay, well, I guess that it is what it. I hate that expression, but I guess that's one of those things where it's one of those things that you don't plan for, but it's happened. You accept it, and then you again like so many issues people seem to have with playing games like this. You you seem to at least be able to talk to the other players at the table and resolve it like by talking and having that conversation with others.
yeah, yeah. It's I've thankfully, to the best of my knowledge, never had a player deliberately try to, like, use D&D as therapy. I mean, not without consent of the other players anyway. So, like, I thankfully haven't had to deal with that directly myself. I have had at least one friend who has had to deal with that, and it was not fun because the player brought a bunch of their, like, parental issues into the game and
Ooh,
did not go well for anybody at the table. And I think most of them aren't friends anymore at this point. But yeah,
yeah, that's not ideal.
it's it can be a difficult thing to navigate because, like, everybody when you're playing a character, there's always at least a little piece of you in that character because there has to be, like, it's whether or not it's whether or not you're playing a good character or an evil character or like a boy or a girl or whatever. There's always a little bit of you in the character you're playing because there
Hmm.
has to be. You are the sum of your experiences, and even when you're pretending to be somebody else, you still bleed through.
Exactly. Yeah.
And sometimes a little too much bleeds through, and that can be difficult for people to handle sometimes. But you know D&D can be used as therapy. Like, there's been articles about, like, RPGs being used as therapy tools because it allows you to explore bits in a safe environment. And, like, I've definitely done that with some of my characters before, where it's like, hey, like, I want to take this specific thought I'm having and, like, make a character around it and kind of explore that concept. But, like, I'm very deliberately, like, taking that piece and sectioning it off into that character so that like it's that character doing this. It's not me like processing through that character. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So yeah, it's going through as I don't know. It's not something that's fun for anybody to deal with when somebody has, a therapy moment in the middle of a game, especially if you're playing with strangers. Because if you're or like like even our group, like I'm not super close to a lot of the people in our gaming group. So like if somebody had a moment like that in our gaming group, I trust that we would be able to handle it. But at the same time, like it's going to be super awkward for everyone involved. While if I'm playing with like super close friends who like I already know their traumas and their
Yep.
issues, then it's a lot more of like, okay, so hey, we touched on this. We're going to take a moment, make sure everyone's okay, and then get back into it. But it's not getting jumped on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the group that we do play with, it seems to be a group that especially considering where it's being played, shies
Mm,
away from anything outright
remote,
traumatizing.
yeah, or
You,
like remotely personable.
exactly, yeah. But like it's just one of those things where it's I think the worst thing that's happened since the game's been played on the main level is that in a game of Twilight 2000, which is set in Eastern Europe,
Mm,
one of the characters said, "I just want to kill more Russians," as a customer walked in and said, "What?" And we had to very quickly explain, "Sorry, it was a game." But I think
yeah, and
because
like
of that, they've been very aware. Anything that said, "Wait, is there people here? Are there kids here?" And they don't always have the conversation fully in character, which is can be fun, but it also can be a bit frustrating as well.
yes. Oh, there was a, and my brain has already forgot the second point that I wanted to talk on, and now I can't. I'm trying to
The
back to it now.
second point was about when a player gets salty that something has happened.
Ooh, yes. So in in some ways, these actually kind of bleed
Ha-
together. And what I was talking about with like the
I w-
affront on the characters is the affront on the player.
it's funny when you said that. It's like, oh wait, did we already talk about this? Because we've touched on it very. It's been touched on, but not specifically touched on.
Yeah, no, we've definitely alluded to a lot of this stuff before. So long time dedicated listeners, thanks. But
Yeah,
but no, there's it kind of boils down to a couple of things for me because there's definitely players who will outright cheat to avoid negative things happening to their character. Like, oh, this is an important roll. I rolled a 3 on the d20. No, I rolled a 13. It's like, did you though?
yeah.
But honestly, I'm 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 quite more willing to accept that than I am players who get pissy at the table when like things don't go their way.
I
Like that's
I am
it,
I will be the first person to admit on this show when we were playing Alien, I deliberately made sure I failed at least 2 rolls because the stress mechanic was so interesting. Um,
yep.
I don't recall if one of the rolls I deliberately failed was the one that ended up in a party member death. I don't think so. I think it was one of the ones that ended up having a like it was non-consequential, but
Mm.
I just enjoy the stress aspect of it, and I wanted more of it. Um,
Anyway, that reminds me of something I want to touch on in this episode as well, but we'll
yes.
get back to that.
Sorry. But yeah, so ad- adjusting the number on the die at the end is one of
Yes.
the least egregious methods of cheating.
Yeah, 'cause, like for like and there's definitely been plenty of arguments about this online, but for me, it's like yeah, it's like it is a game, and most of the time, if you just follow the role, regardless of whether it's good or bad, the game as a whole benefits from it.
Yep.
But if a player nudges a die every once in a while, like as long as they're not being egregious about it, I don't really care. Like if you're having like your big ground, big epic character moment and you roll a 1 on the die, that just kind of sucks, and I understand you wanting to nudge that die.
Yeah.
If you're like
Uh,
succeeding every single time because you can't,
my
stomach the
I've just lost
idea of your
any and
character
all
ever
audio.
failing. What?
I swear to God, this recording.
This recording is cursed, let me tell you.
I don't know what. I think what happened is I was trying to mute so I could sniff, and I somehow clicked something, and whatever happened, it called like it pulled a menu up, and it's like, "Would you like to mute Enko?" No, no, I would not like to mute Enko. And at that point, no, there was no audio whatsoever. So anyway, um, I forget what you were saying when I lost the panic.
Yeah, that is kind of a thought terminator. Talking about flubbing, deliberately not flubbing
Oh
die
yeah,
rolls.
so funnily enough, there I remember we were playing as in Pathfinder, and I had this great character moment, and it was all coming up, and I rolled a 2. It wasn't a critical fail, but
Mm.
it was still the next worst thing, and we all just sat there and was like, "Fuck." Because I failed so poorly, there was an excellent chance that one of the other characters who'd already had their turn and couldn't react, because I was the last one to react for whatever reason, despite having snuck behind her, was the main villain. Or for whatever reason, if I hadn't acted, he would have probably died the next and on very soon after. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no way. And we all just sat there, like, it had to be any number. All I had to do was pass the roll, and it was a very low threshold to pass. I'm like,
Yep.
shit. And we all kind of looked like, wait, I can go berserk because I haven't done that yet. And hilariously, it was the going berserk which allowed another roll. I rolled it. It was a critical success, and I think I rolled it, and then my hands went up. I'm like, someone look at this, because it looked remarkably suspicious. And I think you got up and looked like,
Hmm.
son of a bitch. And then I rolled the damage, and it was as high as it could be. And you're like, how did you do that? Because you were watching the roll, so it wasn't like I was flubbing them. But
No.
that would have been one of those moments where I'm like, had I not had I thought in advance, I'm like, I could have at least just flubbed the roll so I passed, but then I would have lost the even better moment of Ben swings, misses, gets really angry at himself for missing, and just obliterates everything.
Exactly.
And
And like, yeah, it's when
it's with
when the entire group is like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that, or like, yeah, you can retcon that little bit. That's fine as long as the group agrees.
exactly. And then I think the group was on the verge of saying, "Do you want to just at least try rolling that again?" Because we don't want to deal with having to come up with a new character right now. And
Yeah.
thankfully, I remembered that I was able to go berserk, and also had, I think it's because he had a chosen one perk that allowed him to re-roll something or have an additional action that I
Believe
hadn't
so.
used at all, so no one had any idea that it was a thing that Ben could do. We still don't know what he's a chosen one of. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, but the yeah the I'm I'm still pissed we're probably never getting back to that game. I really liked those characters.
Same.
But anyway, one of the other player entitlements that I wanted to touch on because you brought it up, and I'm stating this in advance. You are not an example of this, but you'll understand where I'm going when I
Yeah.
continue this. Players who, shit disturb for no reason.
Oh no, I 100% shit disturb, but I try to
Yeah,
only
no,
do it in character.
yes, yeah, but what you shit disturb, but you don't shit disturb to like the detriment of the table.
No.
And I've definitely played with people who were just like, oh, I'm going to, mess things up in the game, or I'm going to like, oh, we're having like a peaceful like conversation with the king. Oh, this is boring. I'm going to attack the king. And it's like, no, you're being a prick.
Yeah, no, that
And
definitely not
yes,
that.
that is to me that is another part of player entitlement, because you are putting your fun above the desires of literally everybody else at the table. And the game, like, even when you're playing competitively, the game is still like a cooperative game. Like, it's you guys
Hmm.
are playing together, you're not playing against each other. Even when PvP is on the table, you're still playing with each other, and deciding like, hey, I'm going to mess everything up for everybody else because I'm bored, or because I just feel like being lol random or a dick. That's player entitlement, and also a geek social fallacy of like, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
well, we have to just accommodate him because our friend. It's like, no, he's being a dick, kick him out of the group.
He's exactly like, I think the many examples of Ben being a shit disturber have all been that we walk into a room and it's like, oh fuck, there's a big thing up there with big teeth, and you all know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and like the entire group is just like, oh, here it comes. And like,
Yeah,
we're anticipating it as the group, and we're like, it's part of the fun, because it's like, oh, hey, we have this troublemaking character who has this very specific trigger.
and we're well aware that what's about to happen is that shit's going to go down. And the amount of times that we walk into a room, like, can you describe, I'll ask very specifically to describe the teeth area, and the GM does, and before I can react, one of the other character goes, I throw the sack over Ben's head, and Ben just pleasantly walks on because he's like, okay, I now have a sack. He's a dumb goblin who's very intelligent in certain specific things,
Yep.
and yet
And like,
just accepts it. Okay,
in the more like PvP department, there's been a couple of times where like, you're my character specifically, it was like, oh, like, this guy's got really big teeth. It's like, all right, we're doing a contested roll to see if I can grab onto Ben before he launches himself at this guy.
and there's been numerous times where Ben has failed, and it's hilarious because you see Ben flying through the air and the arm just grabs out and scruff of the
Yep.
neck or whatever. So
Yeah, and then there'd be times where Ben would succeed, and he's like, no, no, no. Oh, come on. All right, we got to
yeah,
go take care of this now.
it's one of those things where that is an example of shit disturbing in character where we all know what's going to happen, and
Yeah,
we all are, which is also why I think it got to the point where, with the aforementioned deal that our characters had, where Ben is now barely controlling his urges because sometimes we recognize that it could derail the story a bit more than it needs to.
yeah, yeah, and like
So,
there's one of the favorite phrases I've heard repeatedly from entitled player characters is, well, it's what my character would do. And like that, the phrase by itself is fine, because like, yes, this is what your character would do in this
but the
situation.
reason your character is doing it is because you think it's going to be funny. And yes, it's what your character would do. But look at what you and I did with Ben.
Yeah,
Ben would attack anything with tusks or fancy teeth or teeth that he doesn't have in his collection. We all know that. But
yeah,
we also recognize that this is going to cause an issue at some point more than it already has. Let's fix it in advance.
yeah, and like, it's the people that most frequently use that phrase are using it as a shield to,
Hmm.
try to prevent people from getting angry at them being a dick. And it's like, oh, it's what my character would do. He would, like, attack your character, or he would steal from them, or he would like attack the king, or da 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 da. It's like, okay, but like, your character is not a real person. Your character is somebody you made up. You decided they were going to be like this.
Yeah,
This is still a you problem.
it is very much still a you problem. And yes, your character would do that, but there are ways to, hey, my character would do this. Can someone figure out a way to stop him that makes sense narratively? Or maybe, as has been the case with Ben, he just doesn't look up. Because I think at one point we walked through a room and I rolled a high low to see if Ben happened to look up or not.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember that one. Oh, I'm so disappointed we're not going to be continuing that game, because it was so much fun.
It was hilarious because like, oh, there's all these things with like I think it was like vampire bats or something up top that were not being
Yep.
disturbed.
And
And like,
we're gonna sneak through the rooms. Like if Ben looks up and sees those teeth, he's going to cause
throw
shit because he's gonna
throw
want them.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, let's roll a high low. And it landed on low, and it landed the way that the party needed it to land.
Yeah. And even so with that throw, it's like the group as a whole were like, yeah, we're okay with it being decided this way.
Yep.
If
And
if shit
I
goes
would have
down,
also,
we're still going to have fun.
yeah, and I also would have been fine with if I rolled high and someone said, "Hey Ben, your shoes are untied," and he looks down, they just grab him and carry him. Would have been fine with that,
Exactly.
right? It's one of those things where it doesn't take away the player agency. It just
No.
advances the story more in a different way. It not like you said, we touched on it earlier. It's different from when a player says, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna do A," and it causes an issue with everyone else because that's very specifically what just or they're reacting to something that happened in game after the fact.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that's.
I think, yeah, like, so we've been recording for about an hour. I don't know how much of that is us having audio issues.
Oh, there's so many today.
There really was, and it's just one of those things. And so, folks, if this episode ends up being half an hour and you're hearing this part of the conversation, it really was that bad.
Yeah.
It also might end up being like we just take about 10 minutes off as we try to recap and whatever. So it
Or might get lazy and just leave the entire thing in, and you can see just how amateur we're being about this. Who knows?
no, I'm not leaving. There's at least a good 10 minutes of silence where you're having headset issues and I'm trying to find my still missing telephone. It will show up at some point, I'm sure. So
that
yeah,
part will get removed at least.
that part will get removed. But yeah, so we're going to end up trying to get back onto our semi-regular schedule again.
Yes.
We actually don't have anything for next episode unless you want to touch on the underrated systems and games, but I know you wanted more of a lead in time than hey, these are the 2 notes we have, like which one do you want to go with today?
Yeah.
No,
We will definitely try to get more on track with getting our buffer built up and actually having some structure to these again, because for the 4 or 5 people actually listening to this, it'd be nice to actually give you something quality to listen to.
yeah, I don't know how many people do listen to this, but I do know that there's at least one person who did actually answer our questions, so I will be sending them the mystery thing that we said we would be sending them out.
Ooh, that's something for them to look forward to. Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So they never said I could say their name. They didn't say I couldn't say their name, so I'm erring on the side of caution.
Usually the good idea.
Right, we're usually good for that. Folks, that's probably about it. We're starting to derail ourselves again into general chit chat, which we are fine doing, but I know that isn't always the point of this show. We try to keep it at least somewhat structured.
Yeah.
So until you finally hear from us again,
Game on.
Roll the dice, let's go! falls, and the dice hit the table. The heroes awaken, and the nerds are ready.
Hey, thanks for watching Board Game Today. We always appreciate your views and your support, but there are so many ways for you to support our site. Not only can you do it right here on video, but you can go and check us out at boardgametoday.com, where we have more news, reviews, interviews, everything you could ever want. But since you're here, if you could, you can always give us a like, subscribe, or share our videos or watch something else. Is always much appreciated, and get your game on.